You know what the worst part is? It's not the loneliness. It's pretending you're not lonely while your own family treats you like you're already dead. I'm 67 years old, and I've been setting this table for 43 years. 43 years of Christmas mornings, birthday dinners, Sunday roasts. My hands know exactly where each plate goes, where the salt shaker sits, how to fold the napkins just the way Harold liked them. Even now, 8 months after we buried him, I still set his place. I can't help it. The muscle memory is stronger than grief, stronger than logic. But tonight, something's different. Tonight, I'm setting 5 places because Daniel promised they'd come for dinner. My son, his wife Sophie, and little Emma. It's been 3 weeks since I've seen them properly, not counting those rushed visits where Sophie honks the horn while Daniel runs in to grab something he forgot. 3 weeks of eating dinner alone, talking to Harold's empty chair, wondering if this is what the rest of my life looks like. My hands are shaking as I place the 5th bowl. The arthritis is getting worse, but it's not just that. It's anticipation mixed with something darker, something I don't want to name. Fear, maybe. Fear that they won't come. Fear that they will come but won't really be here. Fear that I'm becoming one of those pathetic old women who cling to their children because they have nothing else left. I've made Harold's favorite, pot roast with carrots and potatoes, the way I've been making it since Daniel was Emma's age. The whole house smells like Sunday, like family, like the way things used to be. I even made that chocolate cake Sophie pretends to like, the one she always takes a tiny slice of and pushes around her plate while making conversation about Emma's school or Daniel's work or anything except the fact that we have nothing real to talk about anymore. The front door slams, and I hear Sophie's voice echoing through the hallway. That bright, cheerful voice she uses when she's about to disappoint someone but wants to sound like she's doing them a favor. "Oh, Mom, don't wait for us tonight. We're eating out, you can just heat up something simple." Just like that. 40 minutes of cooking, an hour of preparation, 3 weeks of looking forward to this, and she dismisses it all with 12 words and a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. She's not even apologetic. She's breezy about it, like she's doing me a favor by releasing me from the burden of feeding my own family. I want to scream. I want to tell her that I've been alone in this house for 8 months, that I talk to the walls because there's no one else to talk to, that I made enough food for an army because I was so excited to have voices filling up these rooms again. I want to ask her when exactly I became such an inconvenience, when feeding my son and granddaughter turned into an obligation they need to escape from. But I don't say any of that. Instead, I smile. I nod. I say, "Of course, dear. You have fun." Because that's what good mothers do, isn't it? We make it easy for our children to hurt us. We pretend their selfishness is consideration, their neglect is independence. We smile while they drive away, leaving us standing in doorways like servants who've been dismissed. The car engine starts, and I listen to them pull out of the driveway. Emma's face appears in the back window for just a moment, looking back at the house, at me standing in the doorway waving like an idiot. Does she wonder why Grandma looks sad? Does she ask why they can't eat with me? Or has Sophie already trained her to see me the way she does, as an obligation, a duty, something to be managed rather than loved? I close the door and walk back to the dining room. 5 place settings stare back at me, accusatory and pathetic. The pot roast is getting cold. The candles I lit are burning down to nothing. This beautiful meal, this careful preparation, this hope I'd been carrying around for 3 weeks, all of it meaningless now. I start clearing the table, mechanical movements hiding the fury building in my chest. The good china goes back in the cabinet. The cloth napkins get folded and put away. The centerpiece, flowers I bought specifically for tonight, gets shoved into the kitchen counter corner where I won't have to look at it. But I can't bring myself to put away Harold's place setting. I leave his plate, his fork, his water glass exactly where they are. At least he never disappoints me. At least when I talk to him, I don't have to pretend everything is fine. I heat up a small portion for myself and eat standing at the kitchen counter, not bothering with plates or proper seating. This is what my life has become, eating leftovers from my own dinner party while my family laughs over appetizers somewhere across town. When did I become this person? When did I become so disposable? Later, much later, when the house feels too quiet and the silence is pressing against my eardrums like cotton, I make the mistake of checking my phone. I don't even know why I do it. Habit, maybe. Loneliness. The desperate hope that maybe Daniel texted to apologize, or that Sophie sent a photo of Emma, or that someone, somewhere, remembers I exist. Instead, I find a photo that stops my heart cold. It's Sophie's Instagram account. The photo shows the four of them, Sophie, Daniel, Emma, and Sophie's parents, sitting around a table at Romano's, that expensive Italian place downtown. They're all smiling, all dressed up, all looking like the picture of family happiness. Emma is wearing the dress I bought her for her birthday last month. Daniel has his arm around Sophie. Sophie's mother is holding Emma's hand across the table. But it's the caption that destroys me, so proud of Daniel's promotion. Family means everything, red heart. Family means everything. I stare at this sentence until the words blur together. Family means everything, but apparently I don't qualify as family anymore. Apparently, when Sophie thinks of family, she thinks of her parents, not her husband's mother. Apparently, when they celebrate Daniel's achievements, I'm not someone who deserves to know about them, let alone celebrate them. My son got a promotion. My son, who I raised alone after his father died when he was 12. My son, who I worked double shifts to put through college. My son, who called me every day during his first job, asking for advice about office politics and career moves. He got promoted, and I found out about it from a social media post where I'm not even mentioned. The phone slips from my hands and clatters onto the kitchen counter. I'm shaking now, really shaking, not from arthritis but from a rage so pure and complete that I don't know what to do with it. How dare they? How dare they sit there celebrating while I eat cold pot roast alone in my kitchen? How dare Sophie post about family meaning everything while systematically cutting me out of every meaningful moment? I pour myself a cup of tea with hands that won't stop trembling. The tea bag steeps too long, making it bitter, but I drink it anyway. Bitter seems appropriate tonight. I sit at my kitchen table, the small one, not the dining room table where Harold's place setting still waits, and stare out the window at the house across the street. Mrs. Patterson is watching television in her living room. I can see the blue glow through her curtains. She's alone too, has been since her husband died 3 years ago. Do her children treat her like this? Or am I special somehow, uniquely forgettable? I think about Harold and how angry he'd be if he could see this. Harold, who thought the sun rose and set on Daniel. Who was so proud when Daniel brought Sophie home, who welcomed her like the daughter we never had. She's good for him, he used to say. She makes him laugh. If Harold could see how she treats me now, how she's poisoned my relationship with my own son, but Harold's gone, and I'm alone with this knowledge, alone with this pain that feels like it might actually kill me. The worst part isn't even the exclusion. It's the deliberateness of it. Sophie didn't forget to invite me tonight. She chose not to. She looked at her guest list for Daniel's promotion celebration and actively decided I didn't belong there. She chose her parents over me. She chose to let me find out about my son's success through a social media post like I'm some distant acquaintance instead of the woman who gave him life. And Daniel, my Daniel, let her do it. He sat at that table, smiling for photos, posting about family, while his mother ate dinner alone in the house where he grew up. The same house where I nursed him through every fever, helped him with every homework assignment, cheered at every baseball game. The same house where Harold and I sacrificed everything to give him opportunities we never had. This is what 50 years of motherhood gets me. This is my reward for a lifetime of putting my child first. I get to be forgotten, excluded, treated like an inconvenience by the woman my son chose to love more than me. I finish my bitter tea and wash the cup, because that's what you do. You clean up after your own loneliness. You tidy away the evidence of your irrelevance. You prepare for another day of being unwanted in your own life. But as I'm drying the cup, something hardens in my chest. Something cold and determined. I'm done being grateful for scraps. I'm done pretending their cruelty is kindness. I'm done being the convenient mother who makes herself small so everyone else can be comfortable. Tomorrow, things are going to be different. I don't know how yet, but they are. Because I may be 67 and alone and forgotten, but I'm not dead yet. And until I am, I refuse to live like this. The next morning brings autumn rain and a letter that changes everything. Not metaphorically, not gradually, literally, immediately, completely changes everything. I'm still in my robe, still nursing my first cup of coffee, still feeling the dull ache of last night's revelation, when I hear the mail slot clang. Usually, it's just bills and advertisements, the kinds of things that pile up when you're old and no one expects you to participate in the world anymore. But today, there's an official-looking envelope mixed in with the usual garbage. It's addressed to Harold Caldwell and Daniel Caldwell. Not me. Never me. Even 8 months dead, Harold gets more mail than I do. I should forward it to Daniel. That's what a good mother would do, what a proper widow would do. But I'm tired of being good and proper. I'm tired of being excluded from my own life. So I open it. The letterhead says First National Bank, Property Services Division. Legal language fills the page, dense paragraphs of whereas and heretofore that make my eyes cross. But buried in all that formal nonsense, 3 words jump out at me like a slap across the face: refinancing application approved. My heart stops. Actually stops, then starts again with a painful stuttering rhythm that makes me grab the kitchen counter for support. I read the letter again, slowly this time, forcing myself to understand every horrible word. Our house, my house, the house where Harold and I spent our entire married life, where we brought Daniel home from the hospital, where we celebrated every Christmas and birthday and milestone, is being refinanced. The mortgage we paid off 15 years ago is apparently back. And according to this letter, the new loan is in Daniel's name. Only Daniel's name. Not Harold and Daniel. Not Margaret and Daniel. Just Daniel. I sink into Harold's chair at the kitchen table, the letter shaking in my hands. This can't be right. Harold left the house to both of us in his will, me with lifetime residence rights, Daniel as eventual inheritor. I remember the lawyer explaining it, remember signing papers, remember the comfort of knowing I'd never have to leave the place where Harold and I built our life together. But this letter suggests something different. This letter suggests that somehow, someway, Daniel has taken a mortgage against the house without my knowledge. And there's only one reason to do that if you already own the property outright. He's going to sell it. They're going to sell my home out from under me. The coffee cup falls from my numb fingers and shatters on the kitchen floor, sending hot coffee and ceramic shards across the linoleum Harold installed himself 30 years ago. I don't move to clean it up. I can't move. I can only sit here, staring at this letter, feeling my entire world crumble just like that coffee cup. How long have they been planning this? How many conversations have Daniel and Sophie had about selling Mom's house, getting Mom out of the way, cashing in on the real estate market? How many times have they stood in my living room, measuring furniture and calculating square footage while I offered them tea and cookies like the pathetic old fool they think I am? The betrayal is so complete, so absolute, that I can't even cry. Tears would be too small for this. This is the kind of pain that hollows you out, that empties you of everything except the horrible clarity of seeing exactly how little you matter to the people you love most. I think about every time Sophie complained about the house being too big for me, every time she suggested I might be happier in a nice senior community, every time she looked around these rooms like she was already redecorating them in her mind. I thought she was being helpful. I thought she was concerned about my welfare. Instead, she was evaluating her future investment. And Daniel. My sweet boy who used to build forts in the basement, who carved his initials in the oak tree out back, who promised me at his father's funeral that I'd never have to worry about anything, he's been planning to take away the only thing I have left of the life I built with Harold. I force myself to stand, my legs shaky and unreliable. The coffee is seeping into the grout between the tiles, but I step around it, walk to Harold's old desk in the corner of the kitchen. He kept all our important papers here: birth certificates, marriage license, insurance policies, the deed to the house. If Daniel has somehow managed to refinance without my knowledge, there should be some record of it. I pull out the thick folder labeled property documents and spread everything across the desk. The original deed, yellowed with age. The satisfaction of mortgage from 2010 when we made our final payment. Harold's will, witnessed and notarized. Everything looks normal, everything looks legitimate, until I get to a document I don't remember seeing before. It's a quitclaim deed, dated 3 months ago, transferring my interest in the property to Daniel. My signature is at the bottom, notarized and official looking. Except I never signed this. I've never seen this document before in my life. I stare at the signature, Margaret Caldwell, written in handwriting that looks like mine but isn't quite right. The loops are too big, the slant too severe. Someone has forged my signature, and they've done a good enough job that it would probably fool most people. But I know my own handwriting. I know how I make my M's, how I cross my T's. This isn't me. This is Sophie. Sophie, who handled all the paperwork when Harold was sick. Sophie, who insisted on helping with the insurance claims and medical bills because you have enough to worry about, Mom. Sophie, who has seen my signature hundreds of times on birthday cards and Christmas checks and thank you notes. Sophie, who probably practiced until she got it right. My daughter-in-law has committed fraud to steal my house. And my son who I would have given anything to, who I would have signed the house over to gladly if he'd just asked, if he'd just been honest, he's let her do it. He's probably the one who suggested it. Mom won't understand the financial stuff. Mom will just worry. It's easier this way. Easier for whom? I sit back down, the forged document in my hands, and finally the tears come. Not gentle tears of sadness, but ugly, angry tears of rage and betrayal and a grief so profound it feels like dying. These people, my family, my son, the woman I welcomed into my home and my heart, have stolen from me. Not just money, not just property, but my security, my autonomy, my right to make decisions about my own life. They've made me homeless in my own home. I cry until I'm empty, until there's nothing left but a cold, hard knot of determination in my chest. Then I wipe my face, blow my nose, and start making plans. Because if they think they can steal from me and get away with it, if they think I'm too old and too stupid and too grateful to fight back, they're about to learn exactly how wrong they are. I may be 67, but I'm not dead yet. And I'm certainly not going down without a fight. The first thing I do is call Lydia. Lydia Henderson, my oldest friend, the only person left in the world who knew me before I became Daniel's mother and Harold's wife. We sang in the church choir together for 20 years before she moved to the coast after her retirement. Lydia, who always saw through people's bullshit, who never liked Sophie from the beginning. She's calculating, Lydia told me after Daniel and Sophie's wedding. Watch your back with that one, Maggie. She's got plans, and they don't include sharing. I should have listened. Lydia answers on the second ring, her voice warm and familiar and exactly what I need right now. Maggie. What a lovely surprise. How are you, dear? And just like that, I fall apart again. The whole story comes pouring out, the missed dinner, the social media post, the forged documents, everything. Lydia listens without interrupting, making little sounds of sympathy and outrage in all the right places. That absolute bitch, she says when I finish, her language sharper than it ever was in our choir days. And Daniel's letting her do this? After everything you've done for that boy? I don't know what to do, Lydia. I can't stay here knowing what I know. I can't pretend everything's normal when they're planning to sell my home without even telling me. But I don't have anywhere else to go. Yes, you do, Lydia says immediately. You come here. Pack a bag and get in your car and drive to me right now. We'll figure out the rest later. I couldn't impose. Margaret Elizabeth Caldwell, don't you dare. You're not imposing, you're saving yourself. There's a difference. So that's what I do. I pack a small suitcase with enough clothes for a week, maybe 2. I take Harold's wedding ring, which I've been wearing on my right hand since the funeral. I take the photo album Sophie has never shown any interest in. I take my mother's jewelry and my grandmother's china and the few things that are truly mine in this house that apparently isn't mine anymore. I leave a note on the kitchen table, don't worry. I'm staying somewhere I'm not in the way. Let them figure out what that means. The drive to Lydia's takes 3 hours, 3 hours of crying and raging and planning my revenge. Because that's what this is going to be, revenge. Not justice, not resolution, but pure, cold revenge against the people who thought they could dispose of me like yesterday's newspaper. Lydia lives in a small cottage 2 blocks from the ocean, the kind of place Harold and I always said we'd retire to someday. When someday became never, I tried not to think about it too much. But driving up her tree-lined street, hearing the crash of waves in the distance, I feel something I haven't felt in months, possibility. She's waiting on her front porch when I pull into the driveway, this tiny 70-year-old woman with silver hair and bright blue eyes and a spine made of pure steel. She hugs me before I'm even out of the car, holds me while I cry again, and doesn't say a single word about how this is all going to work out fine. Because we both know it's not fine. It may never be fine again. But for the first time since Harold died, I'm not alone. That night, sitting on Lydia's back deck with a glass of wine and the sound of the ocean washing away 8 months of accumulated grief, I tell her about the forged signature. She goes very still, very quiet, in that way people do when they're calculating just how much trouble someone is in. That's not just unethical, Maggie. That's fraud. That's a felony. I know. You could send her to prison. I know. We sit in silence for a while, watching the sun set over the water. Finally, Lydia speaks again. What do you want to do? It's such a simple question, but it's the first time anyone has asked me what I want in longer than I can remember. What do I want? I want my son back. I want my daughter-in-law to disappear. I want Harold to be alive so none of this would have happened. I want to be 30 again, starting over, making different choices. But since I can't have any of that, I'll settle for justice. I want them to pay, I say. I want them to understand what they've done. I want them to know that they can't treat people like this and get away with it. Lydia nods. Then that's what we'll do. The next morning, Lydia takes me to the Seaside Community Center, a converted Victorian house that serves as headquarters for what she calls the Grey Rebellion, a group of retirees who refuse to go gently into that good night. They run a food bank, a legal aid clinic, a job placement service, and about a dozen other programs designed to prove that being over 60 doesn't mean being useless. Margaret's got a legal situation, Lydia tells Eleanor Vasquez, a retired paralegal who volunteers 3 days a week. Document fraud, property theft, the works. Eleanor is probably 75, with white hair pulled back in a severe bun and glasses that make her eyes look enormous. She listens to my story without interrupting, taking notes in careful handwriting, asking pointed questions about dates and witnesses and documentation. You have a strong case, she says when I finish. Forging signatures, filing fraudulent documents with the county, these are serious crimes. But before we go to the police, you need to decide what outcome you want. Do you want your daughter-in-law arrested? Do you want your son to face criminal charges? Because once we start this process, you can't take it back. The thought of Daniel in handcuffs makes me physically sick. But the thought of him getting away with this, of them selling my house and pocketing the money while I live on Lydia's charity, makes me even sicker. I want my house back, I say. I want them to know I'm not as helpless as they think I am. And I want Sophie to understand that actions have consequences. Eleanor nods. Then let's start with a lawyer. I know someone who specializes in elder fraud. She works on contingency, so you won't pay anything unless we win. That afternoon, I'm sitting in a law office for the first time in my life. Lisa's smile is sharp as a blade. Then your daughter-in-law goes to jail. That evening, I'm helping Lydia prepare dinner when my phone rings. Daniel's name flashes on the screen, and for a moment, my heart leaps with the old hope. Maybe he's calling to apologize, maybe he's realized what they've done, maybe my son is still in there somewhere underneath Sophie's influence. But when I answer, his voice is cold and irritated, like I'm a child who's wandered off and inconvenienced everyone. Mom, what the hell is this note supposed to mean? Where are you? I'm staying with a friend. What friend? Why didn't you tell us you were leaving? Sophie's been worried sick. The lie is so casual, so automatic, that I almost laugh. Sophie worried about me? Sophie, who can't be bothered to eat dinner with me, who forgot to invite me to celebrate my son's promotion, who forged my signature to steal my house. That Sophie is worried sick about my whereabouts? I'm fine, Daniel. I'm staying with Lydia Henderson. You remember Lydia? The crazy choir lady? Mom, you can't just disappear like this. We need to talk. We need to talk. Not I want to talk to you, or I miss you, or I'm sorry about dinner the other night. We need to talk, like I'm a problem that requires management. About what? There's a pause, and I can almost hear him calculating how much to tell me, how much truth I can handle. About your living situation. About what's best for you going forward. What's best for me? Not what I want, not what would make me happy, but what's best for me as determined by my son and his wife. What's best for me, which apparently doesn't include living in my own home or being included in family celebrations or having any say in my own life. I see. Look, why don't Sophie and I drive down there tomorrow? We can all sit down and discuss this like adults. Like adults. As if I'd been behaving like a child by objecting to being robbed and excluded and dismissed. As if running away from people who are stealing from me is somehow immature. That won't be necessary. Mom. Daniel, I know about the house. Silence. Long, telling silence that confirms everything I suspected. I know about the refinancing. I know about the forged signature. I know you and Sophie are planning to sell my home without telling me. More silence, then a sound that might be him exhaling. It's not like that. What's it like, then? Explain it to me. The house is too big for you. You can't maintain it by yourself. We thought. You thought you'd make that decision for me. You thought you'd commit fraud rather than have an honest conversation. Sophie said she talked to you about this. She said you were interested in assisted living. Sophie said. Of course. Everything comes back to what Sophie said, what Sophie thinks, what Sophie wants. When did my son become a ventriloquist's dummy, speaking only in his wife's voice? Sophie lied to you, Daniel. Just like she lied to the bank when she forged my signature. She didn't forge anything. You signed those papers. The certainty in his voice breaks my heart. He really believes her. My son, who I raised to value honesty above everything else, believes his wife's lies over his own mother's word. I never signed anything, Daniel. I've never seen those documents before in my life. You're confused, Mom. You're grieving, and you're not thinking clearly. Don't you dare. The words come out harder than I intended, sharp enough to cut glass. Don't you dare tell me I'm confused. I know what I signed and what I didn't sign. I know when I'm being lied to and stolen from. And I know when my own son is choosing his wife over his mother. This isn't about choosing sides. Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is. And you chose her. I hang up before he can respond, my hands shaking with rage and heartbreak. Lydia appears beside me, takes the phone gently from my hands, and guides me to the kitchen table. He believes her, I whisper. My own son thinks I'm a confused old woman who doesn't know what she's talking about. Then he's about to get a very expensive education, Lydia says grimly. The next day, Daniel and Sophie drive down to collect me like I'm a lost dog who's wandered away from home. I watch them pull into Lydia's driveway from the living room window, Sophie in her designer sunglasses, checking her phone, Daniel looking uncomfortable and tired. They don't look like people who are worried about me. They look like people who are irritated by an inconvenience. Lydia answers the door, all 5 feet of her blocking their path like a security guard. Daniel, Sophie. Margaret's in the living room. I can hear Sophie's voice, bright and fake, Mrs. Henderson. How lovely to see you again. Thank you so much for looking after Mom. We've been so worried. Such a good performance. Such convincing concern for the woman whose signature she forged, whose home she's trying to steal. They come into the living room like they own it, Sophie immediately starting her manipulation campaign. Oh, Mom, we've been so worried about you. When we saw your note, we thought something terrible had happened. Something terrible did happen, I say calmly. I discovered that my family has been stealing from me. Sophie's face goes through a series of micro-expressions: surprise, calculation, hurt. She's very good at this. Mom, that's such a hurtful thing to say. We would never. You forged my signature on a quitclaim deed. The words hang in the air like smoke from a gun. Sophie's face goes pale, then red, then settles into something that looks like righteous indignation. I don't know what you think you saw, but I know what I saw. I know what you did. And I know that you did it because you thought I was too old and too stupid to figure it out. Daniel steps forward, his face a mixture of embarrassment and anger. Mom, you're being ridiculous. Sophie has been nothing but helpful since Dad died. She's tried to make this easier for you. By committing fraud? By handling things you couldn't handle yourself. And there it is. The truth, finally. In Daniel's mind, I'm incompetent. I'm a burden who can't handle my own affairs, who needs to be managed and controlled and lied to for my own good. I'm not a person with rights and autonomy, I'm a problem to be solved. I raised you to be better than this, I say quietly. I raised you to be honest, not to treat me like furniture you can move around. Sophie starts crying then, real tears or fake ones, I can't tell anymore. Mom, please. We just want what's best for you. The house is so big, and you're all alone there, and we worry. You worry about the property value. You worry about your inheritance. You don't worry about me. That's not true. When was the last time you called me just to talk? When was the last time you invited me to dinner without some ulterior motive? When was the last time you treated me like family instead of like an obstacle? Silence. Because there is no answer to those questions, at least not one they want to give. Daniel tries a different approach. Look, maybe we've made some mistakes. Maybe we should have talked to you more before making decisions. But we can fix this. We can all go home and work this out together. I am home, I say. This is where I'm staying. You can't live with Mrs. Henderson forever. Watch me. They spend another hour trying to convince me to come back with them, using every manipulation tactic in the book. Guilt, Emma misses her grandmother. Concern, you're not thinking clearly since Dad died. Threats, you can't just abandon your responsibilities. But I've heard it all before, and I'm immune to it now. Finally, Sophie plays her last card. Fine. If this is how you want to be, if you want to believe we're the villains here, then maybe it's better this way. Maybe you should stay here and think about what you're throwing away. I'm not throwing anything away. You already took it. They leave angry and empty-handed, and I watch their car disappear down Lydia's tree-lined street with something that feels remarkably like relief. For the first time in 8 months, I don't have to pretend everything is fine. I don't have to smile while being ignored, or be grateful for scraps of attention, or make myself small so other people can be comfortable. I can just be angry. And angry feels so much better than heartbroken. That afternoon, Lydia takes me to the police station to file a complaint. The detective who handles elder fraud cases is a tired-looking man in his 50s who's clearly seen this story before. He takes my statement, examines the forged documents, and nods in all the right places. We'll need handwriting analysis to prove forgery, he says. And we'll need to verify the timeline with the bank. But if what you're telling me is accurate, this is a clear case of financial exploitation. Financial exploitation. Such a clinical term for having your heart broken by your own family. What happens next? We investigate. We build a case. If we can prove fraud, we file charges. Your daughter-in-law could be looking at up to 5 years in prison. 5 years. The number sits in my stomach like a stone. Do I really want to send Sophie to prison? Do I really want to destroy Daniel's marriage, Emma's family, everything my son has built? But then I think about the forged signature, the missed dinners, the social media posts about family meaning everything while I ate alone in my kitchen. I think about being called confused and ridiculous and told what's best for me by people who've never asked what I actually want. Yes. I really do want them to pay for this. A week later, I'm standing in the kitchen of the Seaside Community Center, learning to knead bread dough from a woman named Rosa who's been baking for 70 years. My hands are covered in flour, my back aches from leaning over the counter, and for the first time since Harold died, I feel useful. The community center runs a bakery program 3 days a week, selling fresh bread and pastries to fund their other services. Most of the bakers are women like me, widows, retirees, women who've been pushed aside by families who think they're too old to contribute anything meaningful to the world. The trick is not to overwork it, Rosa explains, watching me fold and press the dough. Bread is like people, it needs gentle handling to become what it's supposed to be. I've been staying with Lydia for 2 weeks now, and slowly, carefully, I'm rebuilding something that feels like a life. I wake up to the sound of ocean waves instead of silence. I eat meals with someone who actually wants my company. I have conversations about books and politics and memories instead of just managing logistics and avoiding conflict. I'm learning that loneliness isn't just about being alone. It's about being with people who make you feel alone. It's about sitting at a table with your family and feeling like a stranger, about being in your own home and feeling like a guest who's overstayed their welcome. Here, helping Rosa measure flour and teaching newcomers how to shape loaves, I remember who I used to be before I became Harold's widow and Daniel's burden. I used to be Margaret Caldwell, woman who could fix anything, who organized bake sales and church functions and neighborhood watch programs. I used to matter. You're a natural at this, Rosa says, watching me shape a perfect baguette. Have you considered teaching the beginner's class? Teaching. The word sends a little thrill through me. When was the last time someone asked me to teach something, to share knowledge, to be useful in a way that mattered? I'd like that, I say, and I mean it. My phone buzzes with a text from Daniel, Mom, we need to talk. This has gone far enough. This has gone far enough. As if I'm the one who started this, as if I'm the one who crossed lines and broke trust. As if standing up for myself is somehow an escalation of a conflict I didn't create. I delete the message without responding. That evening, I'm sitting on Lydia's deck with a glass of wine and a satisfied tiredness from a day of productive work when she joins me with her own glass and a manila folder. Lisa called, she says. The handwriting analysis came back. My stomach clenches. And? Conclusive forgery. The signature on the quitclaim deed was definitely not written by you. Relief and vindication and terror wash over me in equal measures. I was right. I'm not confused or paranoid or grief-addled. I was right, and now there's proof, and now everything changes. They're filing charges tomorrow, Lydia continues. Criminal fraud, elder abuse, falsifying documents. The prosecutor thinks it's a slam-dunk case. And Daniel? He wasn't involved in the forgery itself, but he knowingly benefited from it. He could face charges as an accessory after the fact. My son. My sweet boy who used to crawl into bed with me during thunderstorms, who brought me flowers he picked from the neighbor's garden, who cried at his father's funeral and promised to take care of me. He could go to prison because he chose his wife over his mother, because he believed her lies over my truth. Are you having second thoughts? Lydia asks gently. Am I? Part of me wants to call it off, to go home and pretend none of this happened, to be the good mother who sacrifices herself for her child's happiness. But that part of me is what got me into this mess in the first place. That part of me is what made me an easy target for Sophie's manipulation. No, I say. They made their choices. Now they live with the consequences. The police arrest Sophie on a Tuesday morning. I know because Daniel calls me, screaming and crying and threatening all at once. Are you happy now? Are you satisfied? They arrested Sophie at Emma's school. In front of all the other parents. Emma saw her mother being put in handcuffs. The image makes me sick, my granddaughter watching her mother being arrested, not understanding what's happening or why. But then I remember that Emma saw her grandmother being excluded from family dinners too, saw her mother post about family meaning everything while systematically cutting me out. Children see more than we think they do. I'm sorry Emma had to see that, I say, and I mean it. Sorry? You're sorry? You did this. You destroyed our family. No, Daniel. Sophie destroyed our family when she decided to steal from me. I just refused to pretend it didn't happen. She was trying to help you. She was trying to help herself to my house. The house you can't afford to maintain. The house that's too big for you. We were going to find you a nice apartment. Without asking me. Without including me in the decision. You were going to sell my home and stick me in some senior facility and tell me it was for my own good. Because it would have been. Because you're not capable of making these decisions anymore. And there it is again. The fundamental belief that I'm incompetent, that I need to be managed rather than consulted, that my wants and needs and rights are less important than their convenience. I raised you better than this, I say quietly. You raised me to take care of family. That's what I was doing. No. You were taking care of Sophie. You were taking care of yourself. You were taking care of everyone except me. He hangs up on me, and I know it will be a long time before he calls again. Maybe never. Maybe this is how our relationship ends, with him choosing his wife's felonies over his mother's rights, with him blaming me for consequences he brought on himself. It hurts. God, it hurts so much I can barely breathe. But it also clarifies something important. The son I thought I had, the son I raised and loved and sacrificed for, doesn't exist anymore. Maybe he never did. Maybe I created him in my imagination, this devoted child who would always put family first, who would never abandon or betray or steal from the woman who gave him life. The real Daniel, the one who lets his wife forge documents, who calls his mother confused when she objects to being robbed, who blames her for his own criminal choices, is a stranger to me. And maybe it's time I stopped grieving for someone who was never real. 2 days later, Sophie calls me from jail. The conversation lasts exactly 30 seconds. I hope you're happy, she says, her voice flat and cold. I hope destroying your son's marriage was worth it. I didn't destroy anything. You did that all by yourself. Emma hates you now. Daniel hates you. You'll never see your granddaughter again. Maybe not. But at least I'll never have to see you again either. She hangs up, and I realize I'm smiling. For the first time in this whole nightmare, I'm actually smiling. Because she's right about one thing, I am happy. Not happy that my family is destroyed, not happy that Emma is hurting, but happy that I finally stood up for myself. Happy that I refused to be victimized quietly. Happy that Sophie's manipulation and Daniel's betrayal have consequences. I'm 67 years old, and for the first time in my adult life, I don't have to make myself smaller so other people can be more comfortable. I don't have to pretend cruelty is kindness, neglect is independence, theft is help. I don't have to be grateful for scraps or apologetic for existing. I can just be myself. And myself, it turns out, is not nearly as helpless as my family thought. The legal proceedings drag on for months, but the outcome is never really in doubt. Sophie pleads guilty to elder fraud and forgery in exchange for 2 years probation and full restitution. She has to pay back the money from the refinancing loan plus damages for emotional distress. Daniel has to sign the house back over to me and pay the legal fees. They also have to attend court-mandated counseling for family dysfunction, which strikes me as the kind of cosmic justice Harold would have appreciated. Sophie, who thought she was too smart to get caught, spending her Saturday mornings in a community center conference room learning about healthy boundaries and elder respect. The settlement gives me enough money to buy a small apartment near the ocean, close to Lydia and the community center and the life I've started building here. It's a studio with a tiny kitchen and a view of the water, nothing like the sprawling house where I raised Daniel. But it's mine. Completely, legally, undisputedly mine. I paint the walls pale yellow and hang photos of Harold and better memories of Daniel, Little League games, Christmas mornings, high school graduation. I keep the good stuff and let go of the rest. I buy new furniture that's exactly what I want, not what's practical for a family or impressive for guests. I plant herbs in window boxes and learn to cook for one without feeling pathetic about it. The community center asks me to run the baking program, and I discover I love teaching almost as much as I love kneading dough. I work with women who've been abandoned by their children, divorced after 40-year marriages, widowed and forgotten and written off as irrelevant. We bake bread and make meals for the food bank and prove to ourselves and the world that we still have value. I think about Harold sometimes, wonder what he would make of all this. Would he be proud that I stood up for myself, or disappointed that I destroyed Daniel's marriage? Would he understand why I chose justice over family peace, or would he think I was being vindictive and cruel? But those questions matter less than they used to. Harold's been gone for over a year now, and I'm finally learning to live without his approval, without anyone's approval except my own. 6 months after the settlement, on a Tuesday evening when the sunset is painting the ocean pink and gold, someone knocks on my apartment door. I'm not expecting anyone. Lydia usually calls first, and the pizza delivery guy uses the buzzer downstairs. I open the door to find Emma standing in the hallway, holding a small backpack and looking very serious for an 8-year-old. "Hi, Grandma," she says. "Daddy said I could visit you." My heart stops, then starts again with that same painful stuttering rhythm I felt the day I opened the bank letter. Emma. My granddaughter, who I haven't seen since the day I left Daniel and Sophie's house, who supposedly hates me now, who I thought I'd lost forever along with the rest of my family. "Emma? Sweetheart, what are you doing here?" "Daddy brought me. He's downstairs in the car. He said to tell you he's sorry and that he wants to talk, but only if you want to. Daniel is here." Daniel, who screamed at me over the phone, who chose Sophie's lies over my truth, who blamed me for the consequences of his own choices. He's here, and he's asking permission to talk to me instead of demanding it as his right. Maybe people can change after all. "Do you want to see him?" Emma asks. "He's been really sad since Mommy went away. He cries sometimes when he thinks I'm not looking." Sophie went away. That's how an 8-year-old processes her mother's probation and mandatory community service. Sophie went away, and Daniel has been sad, and somehow that led them here, to my door, asking for forgiveness instead of demanding compliance. "Yes," I say. "I want to see him." Emma yells down the stairwell. She says, "Yes, Daddy." And a few minutes later, Daniel appears. He looks older, thinner, like the last few months have aged him years instead of weeks. His eyes are red-rimmed and uncertain, nothing like the confident man who used to tell me what was best for my own life. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Daniel." We stand there in my doorway, my son and my granddaughter and me, all of us damaged by Sophie's lies and Daniel's betrayal and my refusal to be victimized quietly. But we're here. We're all still here, still breathing, still capable of more than the worst things we've done to each other. "Can we come in?" Daniel asks. "I'd like to explain some things. I'd like to apologize." I step aside and let them into my small, yellow apartment. Emma immediately goes to the window to look at the ocean, leaving Daniel and me to navigate this conversation alone. "I was wrong," he says simply. "About everything. About the house, about Sophie, about you. I was so wrong, and I'm so sorry. Tell me what changed." He runs his hands through his hair, a gesture I remember from his childhood when he was working up the courage to confess some misdeed. Sophie's lawyer made her take a psychological evaluation as part of her plea bargain. Turns out she has something called narcissistic personality disorder. The therapist explained how people like that manipulate family members, how they isolate their targets from support systems, how they make everyone doubt their own perceptions. Narcissistic personality disorder. Such a clinical term for the woman who systematically destroyed my relationship with my son, who made me feel crazy for objecting to my own abuse. She started working on me right after we got married, Daniel continues. Little comments about how you were too dependent on me, how you guilt-tripped me into visiting, how you treated me like I was still a child. I didn't even notice it happening. She was so subtle, so gradual about it. And the house? That was all her idea. She convinced me you'd signed the papers during one of your confused spells after Dad died. She said you'd agreed to the sale but then forgot because grief was affecting your memory. I believed her because I wanted to believe her. Because believing her was easier than dealing with the truth. The truth. That he married a woman who saw his mother as competition, as an obstacle to be removed. That he chose comfort over confrontation, lies over conflict. That he abandoned the woman who raised him because his wife made it easier to do so. I'm not making excuses, he says quickly, seeing something in my face. I made the choice to believe her. I made the choice to exclude you, to dismiss your concerns, to let her isolate you from your own family. I did that. And I'm sorry doesn't even begin to cover it. I look at my son, really look at him, and see someone I haven't seen in years. Not the confident husband who always took Sophie's side, not the successful man who knew what was best for everyone, but my Daniel. The boy who used to help me bake cookies, who brought me dandelions and called them flowers, who promised at his father's funeral to take care of me. Where is Sophie now? Staying with her parents while she completes her community service. We're getting divorced. I can't be married to someone who would steal from my mother, who would lie about it, who would let me blame you for her crimes. And Emma? She's with me. Sophie gets supervised visitation twice a week. The court-appointed psychologist says Emma needs stability right now, needs to be with the parent who isn't serving a criminal sentence. I watch Emma at the window, pointing excitedly at a fishing boat in the distance. She looks happy, healthy, unaware that the adults in her life have been having this heavy conversation behind her back. She doesn't understand everything that happened, Daniel continues. But she knows Mommy did something wrong, and she knows I was mean to Grandma, and she's been asking to see you for months. Why now? Why did you finally bring her? Daniel is quiet for a long moment, watching his daughter discover the ocean view. Because she asked me why families hurt each other. And I realized I didn't have a good answer. I realized that the example I've been setting for her, choosing convenience over truth, avoiding conflict instead of addressing problems, letting other people hurt the people I love, that's not the kind of person I want her to become. It's a good answer. Not good enough to erase 8 months of abandonment and betrayal, but good enough to be a starting point. What do you want from me? I ask. I want to try again. I want to rebuild our relationship, if you'll let me. I want Emma to know her grandmother, to learn from you the way I learned from you before I lost my way. And if I say no? Then I'll respect that. I'll understand that some damage can't be repaired. But I hope you'll give me a chance to prove I can be the son you raised me to be. The son I raised him to be. Honest, loyal, protective of family. Someone who stands up for what's right even when it's difficult. Someone who keeps his promises, especially the ones he makes to the people who love him most. It's going to take time, I say. It's going to take a lot of work. You broke my trust, Daniel. You broke my heart. I can't just pretend that didn't happen. I know. I'm prepared for that. I'm prepared to earn your forgiveness instead of expecting it. Emma turns from the window, her face bright with excitement. Grandma, do you have any cookies? Daddy said you make the best cookies in the world. I look at my granddaughter, at my son, at the possibility of rebuilding something from the wreckage of our family. It won't be the same as it was before. It can't be. Too much has happened, too much trust has been broken. But maybe it can be something new, something better, something based on honesty instead of obligation. I don't have any cookies right now, I tell Emma. But I know how to make them. Would you like to learn? Her face lights up like Christmas morning. Yes. Can we make chocolate chip ones? Those are my favorite. Mine too, I say, and it's true. They were Harold's favorite too, and Daniel's when he was Emma's age. Some things, the good things, continue across generations. We spend the afternoon in my tiny kitchen, Emma standing on a chair so she can reach the counter, Daniel measuring ingredients while I teach Emma how to cream butter and sugar. It's not the same as the family dinners I used to host, the elaborate productions in my big house with my good china and my carefully planned menus. It's better. Because this time everyone who's here actually wants to be here. Emma asks 1,000 questions about everything. Why does vanilla smell so good? Why do we need eggs? Why does the dough taste better than the cookies? Daniel laughs at her enthusiasm, helps her crack eggs without getting shells in the bowl, wipes flour off her nose. This is what I've been missing. Not the performance of family, not the obligation of family, but the joy of family. The simple pleasure of teaching someone you love how to make something delicious, of sharing knowledge and laughter, and the satisfied tiredness that comes from creating something together. When the cookies are cooling on racks and Emma is licking the last of the dough from the spoon, Daniel pulls me aside. I know this doesn't fix everything, he says quietly. I know one afternoon of cookie baking doesn't make up for everything that's happened. But I want you to know that I remember now. I remember who you are, who I used to be, what family is supposed to mean. What's it supposed to mean? It's supposed to mean safety. It's supposed to mean that no matter what happens in the world, there are people who will always love you, always protect you, always choose you over their own convenience. He's right. That's exactly what family is supposed to mean. And for too long, we forgot that. For too long, we let Sophie's poison turn us against each other, let manipulation and lies replace honesty and love. Are you going to be okay? I ask. The divorce, single parenthood, all of it? I think so. It's scary, but it's also relieving. I don't have to walk on eggshells anymore. I don't have to manage Sophie's moods or make excuses for her behavior. I can just be myself, be Emma's father, be your son if you'll let me. I'll let you, I say. But Daniel, if you ever choose someone else's comfort over my well-being again, if you ever let anyone treat me the way Sophie did, if you ever make me feel like I'm a burden in my own family, we're done. Forever. I understand. And it won't happen again. I promise. Promises are dangerous things, especially from people who've broken them before. But looking at my son's face, seeing the shame and determination there, I choose to believe him. Not because I'm naive, not because I'm desperate for family connection, but because people can change. Because the man standing in my kitchen isn't the same man who screamed at me over the phone 6 months ago. Emma runs over to us, chocolate on her face and joy in her eyes. Grandma, these are the best cookies ever. Can I take some home to show my friends? Of course, sweetheart. And you can come back next week to make more, if you want. Really? Can I, Daddy? Can we visit Grandma every week? Daniel looks at me, a question in his eyes. Am I ready for that kind of commitment? Am I ready to let them back into my life on a regular basis, to risk being hurt again? Every week, I say firmly. Every Saturday afternoon. We'll bake something different each time. Emma claps her hands and does a little dance around my kitchen, and I can't help laughing. This is what I've been missing, what Sophie tried to steal from me, the pure, uncomplicated love of a child who thinks her grandmother can do anything, make anything, fix anything. Maybe I can't fix everything. Maybe I can't undo the damage Sophie caused or erase the months of loneliness and betrayal. But I can make cookies with my granddaughter. I can teach her how to measure flour and crack eggs and trust the people who love her. I can show her what family really means, not the performance of it but the reality of it. As Daniel and Emma get ready to leave, Emma hugs me tight around the waist. I missed you, Grandma, she whispers. I'm sorry Daddy was mean to you. I told him that wasn't nice. Out of the mouths of babes. An 8-year-old child understood what her father couldn't see, that being mean to grandmothers isn't nice, that families should protect each other, that love isn't supposed to hurt. I missed you too, sweetheart. More than you know. After they leave, I clean up the kitchen and sit on my deck with a cup of tea and a warm cookie. The sun is setting over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that Harold would have loved. I think about how different my life is now compared to a year ago, how much has changed and broken and been rebuilt. I'm not the same woman who set 5 place settings for a family dinner that never happened. I'm not the same woman who smiled politely while being excluded and dismissed and stolen from. I'm not the same woman who thought being a good mother meant accepting any treatment, forgiving any betrayal, sacrificing any piece of myself for my child's comfort. I'm someone new now. Someone stronger, someone who knows her own worth, someone who refuses to be treated like furniture that can be moved around at other people's convenience. I'm someone who bakes bread for the community center and teaches widows that their lives aren't over and stands up for herself when standing up is required. I'm still Daniel's mother, but I'm Margaret Caldwell first. I'm still Emma's grandmother, but I'm my own person too. I'm still part of a family, but it's a family that earns its place in my life instead of assuming it has a right to abuse that place. This is what 67 looks like when you finally stop apologizing for existing. This is what widowhood looks like when you build a life instead of just surviving one. This is what family looks like when it's based on love instead of obligation, respect instead of manipulation, truth instead of convenient lies. It's better than I expected. It's better than I thought I deserved. It's exactly what I should have demanded all along. And if that makes me a difficult old woman, if that makes me ungrateful or unreasonable or hard to manage, then so be it. I'd rather be difficult than destroyed, ungrateful than used, unreasonable than robbed. I'd rather be myself.